It seems that the fanbase is almost split 50-50 on whether or not they like Negan or hate him. For 50%, he's a complex character that's been developed incredibly well from a brutal villain to a morally gray anti-hero, and for the other 50%, he's the man that killed Glenn. Well, this 50-50 rule may not exactly be true anymore. I feel like it's more like 70% like him and 30% hate him, but the switch only happened for these 20% of people because of the episode Here's Negan. During the pandemic, The Walking Dead production was shifted, and instead of getting right to work on season 11, we got an additional 6 episodes to season 10, which sounded fantastic. Episode 17 was okay. I guess it was good to see Maggie again, and we got a glimpse at the next big threat, the Reapers. 18 was, again, okay. Daryl with a girlfriend was kind of weird. 19 is actually a good episode. 7.3 is too low. I'll stand by that. 20, I guess this one sets up the Commonwealth more, sorta. Oh god, I don't know what they were thinking here, but thank goodness the last episode is actually a good episode, and not only a good one, but a great one. Here's Negan was the perfect end to season 10, and it made all of those COVID protocols far less noticeable here than in the episodes before it. This episode is written, shot, and acted perfectly, and in today's video, I'm going to be recapping Here's Negan, giving my analysis as to how this episode changed the audience's perspective on Negan's character. And while some of the choices Negan's made over the years have been controversial to say the least, one decision you can make that won't be controversial is downloading Raid Shadow Legends. Raid is a completely free-to-play RPG for your phone or tablet that gives you a console or PC-like gaming experience like no other game in the App Store can provide. I've been playing Raid for several weeks now, leveling up my heroes and battling against all sorts of unique enemies has been an absolute blast. I'm working my way up to get 3 heroes that I've had my eyes on since I started the game. Being such a big fan of The Walking Dead, of course I had my eyes set on the Undead Horde faction. I've almost gotten Blood Gorged, the Catacomb Counselor, and Harvest Jack. I mean, come on, who wouldn't want to play as Harvest Jack? Look at him. But there are literally hundreds of different champions to choose from different factions all over the realm of Teleria. One of those new heroes is actually the one and only Rhonda Chase. You can get Rhonda for free right now, whether you're a new or longtime player, just by logging into Raid. All you've got to do is log in and play for 7 days between now and February 20th, and Rhonda's yours, simple as that. To celebrate Rhonda's arrival in Raid, you can also use the special promo code RAIDRhonda to get tons of helpful things like a 3-day 100% XP boost, 500k silver, and 5 full energy refills. Also, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can get exclusive rewards in Raid right now. If you haven't started playing Raid Shadow Legends yet, join the 80 million other people who have and click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen to receive unique bonuses up to $30 for this free game. I'm talking about a free epic champion, 200k silver, 1 energy refill, 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard. All this treasure will be waiting for you right here, available for 30 days for new players only. Thanks to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into the episode. We start off with Maggie and Herschel walking through Alexandria, having a nice conversation when Maggie catches Negan's eye, and her mood sours. Carol notices this, so she takes Negan hunting through the woods. She takes him to a cabin where there's supplies, and Negan immediately knows what this means. Carol tells Negan that the council has voted to banish him, and she knows it's not what he wants, but given their history, it's better than he deserves. Negan asks if this was really a council decision or a Maggie decision. Carol avoids the question. Negan sits by himself in the cabin by the fire, where he's haunted by a vision of his past self. Present Negan tells his former self that he's wrong, but past Negan says that he's nothing without Lucille, and even present Negan knows that's true. So present Negan takes a trip to where the former Negan truly died and begins digging all over the place for Lucille. He eventually finds her with a mix of happiness and guilt on his face. We then flash back to 12 years ago. Negan is held up by a gang of bikers. He tells them to let him go so that way he can get back to his wife who has cancer. The man questions Negan as to where he got the medicine, and Negan's forced to tell him. So we flash back to 2 or 3 days before that, literally, where Negan tries to rob a camp for their medical supplies, but he doesn't get very far because Laura knocks him out. Negan wakes in the RV, where a man asks him what he needs and why. Negan tells him that he needs medicine for his sick wife, and he's taught himself how to give her chemotherapy. The doctor is surprised he figured that out and asks how, where he tells him it's not that complicated unless something goes wrong. We then flash back to another 6 weeks earlier, where Negan is taking care of his wife Lucille, having to go outside and make sure the generator keeps working. All is fine until a walker comes around and Negan has to take care of that himself. This proves to be quite difficult for Negan, so Lucille actually has to save him, saying that she just used their last bullet. The generator is out of gas, so Negan has to go and look for some, but instead he finds something some would say even better. He goes back to Lucille, saying he found someone's stash and that it'll help her with her nausea. But he didn't find any more gas, and Lucille says that he's having to go out further and further each day in order to find supplies for her. Negan says that once she's all better, he'll take her wherever she wants. Another walker goes outside, and Lucille says that if it bothers him, he has to take care of it, but Negan says that it doesn't bother him. They have a delicious dinner of dog food where Lucille gives Negan an anniversary gift, his leather jacket. She apologizes for getting angry about a credit card bill, saying that it seems so silly now, but Negan says that she has nothing to apologize for, and that it's him who has to apologize to her for the man that he once was. The next day, they wake up and see that the generator shut off in the night, and now Lucille's medicine isn't cold enough to use. Negan sparks a plan to go and find the medical traders, but Lucille tries to talk him out of it because he has nothing to trade. She sits him down and says that she has something to talk to him about. We then flash back even further to 7 months earlier before the apocalypse. Negan is playing video games when Lucille barges in and scolds him for paying $600 for a leather jacket. She goes on the phone to complain to her friend Janine about Negan. They sit down to have dinner where Lucille says she's having an MRI tomorrow and needs to be driven home. Negan says that he can't because he has a meeting with his probation officer, but anyways, all doctors do is make you sit around all day until they tell you everything is alright. But not everything is alright, and Lucille is diagnosed with cancer. She goes to call Negan, but he doesn't answer. She calls Janine, but she doesn't answer. She calls Negan's probation officer, who says Negan isn't there, and Lucille puts 2 and 2 together. In the present, or well, during the apocalypse, the timeline in this episode is rather confusing. Negan apologizes to Lucille, but she says it's okay because he's made up for it. Negan says he's not giving up on her. Not now, not ever. Now, back in the RV, the man gives Negan his medical supplies, and Laura says that a biker gang owns the roads at night, so he'll need a weapon, and she gives him the bat. And now, back to when Negan is captured, he has to decide whether or not to tell the truth and give up the doctors who helped him, or lie and get killed because of it. He tells the truth, and a while later, the bikers come back to let him go because they've taken the RV. Inside the RV, Laura screams as Negan rides away. He gets home to see Lucille, where he finds writing on the door that says, "Please don't leave me like this." He opens the door and his world shatters. Lucille has committed suicide and turned into a walker. He approaches her, taking the bag off her head before sitting down and drinking his sorrows away. He goes outside, taking their barbed wire off their fence and wrapping it around his bat. He goes inside, putting the gasoline all over the house before setting it ablaze and riding away, hitting the mailbox as he does so. We see the doctor who gave Negan his medical supplies is getting beat by the bikers, interrogating him to find out where the rest of the supplies are. He finds the nail that Negan was trying to unscrew and continues working. Negan arrives, getting his first kill with Lucille as he attempts to save the doctors from the biker. Inside, the leader of the bikers hears the gunfire from outside as the doctor escapes and bashes the chair over the head of their leader. Negan comes inside, gives the doctor the keys to find his daughter, and now it's time for the first ever Negan speech. He tells the biker that he's got some things to get off his chest, and once he's done talking, something very bad is gonna happen to him. He talks about how tonight was the first time he ever killed a man, but there was a time before that he came close. He talks about how he almost beat a man to death because he talked too loudly over the song that was playing at the bar. He says that he saw red, and back then it got him fired, but now that doesn't mean anything because he can see red all he wants to with no consequences. And just like the season 6 finale, Negan starts beating the leader and we cut away, this time to the actual present of the show. Negan kills a walker with Lucille and she breaks. He takes Lucille back to his cabin, talking to her, saying that he misses her and how he's still fighting for her and he won't give up before he puts her to rest one final time. Negan walks back into camp, saying that he's coming back, and Carol says if he does that, Maggie's gonna kill him. He looks at her as he walks back into the camp and smiles. So right away, the first thing I want to talk about from this episode is the chemistry between Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Hilary Burton Morgan. Why is it that they have such great chemistry? Well, if you didn't know and couldn't tell from their last name, these two are married in real life, and it makes their performance that much more captivating. Just scenes of them laughing and living together happily in this apocalypse are so much better because you can see that it's actually husband and wife laughing together playing these characters. It's almost jarring in a way to see their relationship because it's by far the most genuine relationship we've seen in this show, but it makes their scenes together so much better and the storyline that much more heartbreaking. But this episode is more than just the relationship of Negan and Lucille. It's a complete origin story of Negan and how he became the man he did. We see that though he wasn't always a great man, he was when it counted, sticking by Lucille with her illness in the most uncertain time of their lives. He teaches himself how to give her chemotherapy and stops at nothing to keep her alive. Lucille knows that she's not going to make it and does her best in subtle ways to tell Negan that he needs to prepare for life after she's gone. She tells him that he can't just stand by and let walkers remain outside, he's going to have to take charge and do something about the things that bother him. Negan would later go on to absolutely put an end to things that bother him, but all of those actions are born from Lucille's words. This being an origin story of how Negan got to be the man we meet in season 6, we also get to see the origin of his famous items. These weren't necessary additions to the episode, they easily could have left these out and we could have assumed he got them sometime down the road, but introducing the bat, especially the barbed wire portion of it, really makes this episode come full circle. During the course of our time with Negan for seasons 6 through 10, he always seems to have an obsession with this bat, asking where she is and getting angry when Rick holds her, and we always kind of just assume this was a character quirk of Negan's to make him stand out, but this episode shows us how much he cared for his wife and how the bat symbolically represented her as he moved on in life. It makes viewing those past episodes that much better because we see Negan in a different light. I mentioned this a bit in my character analysis of Negan video, but Negan becomes who he becomes because of Lucille's death. It would be very interesting to see a version of the story where Lucille didn't die and Negan became a different man. Watching this episode again, I'm actually unsure of if Negan would have even survived the apocalypse had his wife's death not happened. He couldn't deal with a single walker without Lucille's help, and if the doctors hadn't have been good people, he would have easily been killed. But Lucille seemed to have what it took to survive, so maybe that story would be interesting. Maybe she would have carried around a paddle spiked with nails named Negan. The thing about this being a COVID episode meant that the cast couldn't be too large and the plot couldn't be too grand, but that worked perfectly for this episode. Had this been one of the actual 16 episodes in the season, I don't think people would have looked back on it as fondly as they do. Would it be a good episode? Sure, but it would have taken away from the story they're telling in order to sidestep the journey. This is very similar to how some people feel about Morgan's episode Here's Not Here in season 6. It is a good episode, absolutely, but it halted the story they were telling, one that people were invested in, so it's not thought of as one of the better episodes like Here's Negan is. So how do you go about having these types of episodes in the main Walking Dead show? Not that that's an issue anymore, but they break the pacing, and Here's Negan only worked because it was an additional episode. These are both self-contained episodes that grow our characters' backstories, but they aren't essential to view in order to understand the character. This sounds very similar to something that just happened in Tales of the Walking Dead with Alpha. We didn't need to hear some more backstory on Alpha, but we did, and it was a nice addition to give some more context to that character. Episodes like Here's Negan and Here's Not Here should continue for sure, but that's what Tales of the Walking Dead should be, and it's still what it can be. There's plenty of characters that we'd like to see backstories of, whether it's set before or during the apocalypse. Even though this is just a COVID episode, it being the last episode of season 10 does a pretty good job of leading directly into season 11. Negan and Maggie clearly have their issues, and that's brought front and center in season 11 episode 1. Carol also says that they're about ready to head to an army base for supplies, and that's the opening scene of season 11. I think this episode is absolutely beautiful and adds a lot of context to Negan's character. Him burning Lucille is him finally letting go of the past, both the past of Lucille and the past of who he was in the apocalypse. However, I think there is one aspect of the episode that I have never seen anybody mention, and that's Lucille as a walker. Why is she a walker? Well, we as audience members know that the virus is just in the air, but Negan doesn't know this, and Lucille shouldn't either. Yet she writes, "Don't leave me like this" on the door. Did she mean don't leave her as a walker, or just don't leave her laying in bed? Did she know that she was gonna be a walker, or did the writers just forget the timeline and not think about how the beginning of the apocalypse, people didn't know that the virus was airborne? I wouldn't blame them if they forgot the timeline, because the timeline of this episode is very confusing. That's really my only gripe with the episode. It's a small one, so it doesn't really matter in the long run. But what are your thoughts on the episode? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, remember to leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this. If you do, then I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah.